Ambassador Rosenblum, it's wonderful to be speaking to you at the embassy in Tashkent. We've always had conversations in Washington, now that I think about it. And it's super special, actually, to be sitting like this next to you after 2 years of the pandemic, you know, with so much virtual communication. It feels weird, actually.
It does, it does. It feels weird to be sitting in the same room as people when you're talking to them and to see their full faces and not through a mask. So,
and the embassy seems to be back full scale at work.
It is, yeah. Our embassy
no more telework for you.
No more telework, and although I have to say that the telework habits we developed during the pandemic will be useful, and it allows us to do more things and be more flexible. But we're all back at work. We're not even any longer wearing masks in the embassy. And that's obviously a reflection of the improvement in the COVID situation. But, you know, we're a little cautious because we've seen in some other countries in the world, COVID's come back in new forms. And so we remain vigilant. But it's a great change, and it allows us to do things like this.
We saw a long line of visa applicants outside, excited, impatient, nervous, waiting for their appointments, and we see a crowded embassy. So in a way, back to normalcy.
Yeah, we're basically back to normal operations in our consular section as well. We're trying to make up for lost time. There's a big backlog of people who are interested in both immigrant and non-immigrant visas, and our consular section is working through that and trying to reduce the backlog. I do know that some people, because I hear this when I just meet people out in the city or around the country, are frustrated because it's not so easy to get an interview sometimes. You know, you just have to schedule an interview for the visa, and there's so much interest and so much, you know, people are immediately filling up the slots. But we're going to work on that. We're going to try to meet all the needs, and frankly, it's gratifying to know that there's so much interest in the United States in visiting our country, and it shows that I think the depth of the ties between our two nations.
Yeah, I mean, every Uzbek has an American dream. That's what we say. I just interviewed Consular Chief Rob Romanowski. It was a great interview, and there we discussed how you don't have a role in that process, how U.S. ambassador in any country doesn't and should not interfere into the consular services process.
Right.
But I'm sure you must get asked a lot by ordinary Uzbeks and by others, including, I'm suspecting here, officials about visa processes.
Yes.
What is your answer usually? How do you get away from that situation?
You're absolutely right. I do get asked a lot, even on random occasions. I remember once I was on a flight flying back from Germany. I had gone to Germany for a holiday, just a weekend, and I was on an Uzbekistan Airways flight from Frankfurt to Tashkent, and the person sitting next to me recognized me and immediately began asking about a visa. So what I said then and what I say to people is the first thing is, as ambassador, there's actually a wall that's put up legally that I'm not part of that process, that I'm not supposed to be part of the decision-making process or even to influence it. So that's the first thing I say. They usually don't believe me when I tell them that, but I tell them that's the truth.
They look at you with a suspicion, like,
he's hiding something or whatever. Occasionally, what I can do is at least give them information about who they should call or what they should do, or explain the context. You know, for example, during the pandemic, when we were so limited, I was able to explain to people why we were so limited. We were still issuing some visas, but on a very limited basis. And so that's what I can do, but I'm not going to be able to solve their visa problem. I refer them to Rob and his team.
Yeah, very often at the Voice of America, we get messages from our viewers and fans who say, hey, can you please talk to American ambassador? Like, you know, let him open the process, especially during the pandemic, you know, when the services were not fully provided and things were restricted and all of that. And we do our best to guide them. It's a constant conversation.
It is. And you know, it's important, I think, for people to understand why it is the way it is. What I was saying about this wall that's set up between the ambassador and my role and the consular section and the consular chief. The idea is that there are rules governing how we issue visas and the criteria that are required for people to gain entry to the United States. And the people who know those rules and who are technically competent should be making the decision. It should not be influenced by political considerations or personal preference. I like this person, so you should give them a visa. And in order to avoid that, we've set up this system of separation.
A good example to show how corruption could be avoided, can be or should be avoided, right?
Yes, exactly.
A lot changed throughout the pandemic, as you know, and a lot changed since last year.